The massive underground chamber stretched nearly half a kilometer across, carved from solid bedrock beneath the mountains of what was once called North America. 5,000 humans sat in perfect stillness, their breathing synchronized, their minds quiet. This was the silent worship, a tradition maintained for 3 centuries since the Great Conflict. Tom shifted slightly on his stone seat, careful not to make a sound. At 22, this was his 100th time participating in the ceremony. His mentor, Jack, sat beside him, eyes closed, back straight despite his 70 years. The old man had never explained why they continued this practice, only that it was the most important duty humans could perform. The silence keeps us safe, Jack always said. Remember that. The chamber was lit only by soft blue lights embedded in the walls, casting long shadows across the gathered people. No one spoke. No one moved. The only sound was the gentle hum of the air circulation system keeping the vast space breathable. 2 kilometers above them, the surface of Earth appeared, mostly abandoned. Small settlements dotted the landscape, humans living simple lives, farming, building, and maintaining the old technologies without developing new ones. To any observer, humanity seemed to have abandoned its earlier dreams of expansion and progress. This was exactly what they wanted the universe to believe. Commander Rax stood on the bridge of the scout vessel Distant Reach, studying the blue-green planet below. His gray skin reflected the glow of the ship's instruments as his 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of deep thought among his species. Another primitive world, said his second-in-command, Dren. Barely worth conquering. Rax turned his elongated head. The records show they once had promising technology, then they simply stopped advancing. The visitors, as they called themselves, had conquered 17 systems over the past century. Their strategy was efficient. Identify developing civilizations, assess their technology and resources, then quickly overwhelm them before they could pose any threat. They had never encountered serious resistance. Our scans detect unusual energy patterns underground, said the science officer Lin. Regular gatherings of humans in massive chambers. No machinery, just bodies. Religious rituals. Dren dismissed with a wave of his 3-fingered hand. Many species cling to such practices before accepting our rule. Rax wasn't convinced. 3 centuries ago, these humans were developing faster than any species we've encountered. Then suddenly, they retreated from space, dismantled most of their cities, and adopted this simple existence. He gestured toward the view screen. I want to know why. The High Command expects our report in 7 rotations, Dren reminded him. We should focus on cataloging resources, not studying primitive customs. We will do both, Rax decided. Prepare a surface team. We'll observe one of these gatherings. The silent worship continued as it always did. Hour 3 passed into hour 4. Some of the younger participants struggled to maintain their discipline, but the weight of tradition kept them still. In the center of the chamber, a simple stone pedestal stood empty, the focal point toward which everyone faced. Jack had once told Tom that the earliest ceremonies had included a physical object on that pedestal, but no one alive knew what it had been. The purpose of silent worship was remembrance of something that must never be forgotten, yet the specific memory had been intentionally lost to time. This paradox had always fascinated Tom. A slight vibration passed through the stone floor. Tom's eyes flickered open momentarily. Such disturbances were rare but not unheard of, usually minor seismic activity in the mountain range above. He closed his eyes again and resumed his controlled breathing. What Tom couldn't see was the small probe that had penetrated the chamber's ceiling, hovering silently near the high rock dome. Inside the probe, cameras and sensors recorded everything: body, temperatures, heart rates, brain activity of the participants, and the strange energy readings that had drawn the aliens' attention. Fascinating, Lynn whispered as she studied the data streaming back to their hidden ship. 5,000 humans. Perfectly synchronized biometric readings. This is not random, this is training. Rax leaned forward. Training for what? Unknown. But look at these energy patterns. She pointed to a pulsing display. "They're generating a field that extends well beyond the chamber. It's subtle, but it's there." Dren snorted. "You're seeing meaning in meaningless ritual. These humans are no threat. Our invasion will be as simple as the others." "No." Rax's voice was firm. "Something's not right. I want a closer look." He stood from his command. "Sure, I'll lead the infiltration team myself." 6 hours later, as darkness fell across the mountains, 3 visitors in environment suits made their way through a secondary entrance to the underground complex. Their adaptive camouflage rendered them nearly invisible against the rough stone walls. "Remember," Rax subvocalized through their secure communication system. "Observation only. We don't engage." They moved silently through the tunnels, following the map their probes had constructed. The alien technology allowed them to bypass the simple security systems the humans had installed. Eventually, they reached a narrow observation balcony overlooking the main chamber. From this vantage point, the sight was even more impressive. Row upon row of motionless humans, creating perfect concentric circles around the empty pedestal. The silence was absolute. "This has been continuing for nearly 9 hours now," Lynn noted, checking her instruments. "No breaks, no movement." "Their discipline is remarkable," Rax admitted. "Perhaps there's more to these humans than—" His words cut off as Dren stumbled, sending a small shower of loose stones clattering down into the chamber below. The sound, though minor, echoed dramatically in the perfect silence. 5,000 heads remained still, but something changed. Rax felt it before his instruments detected it, a shift in the atmosphere, a tightening of attention. The humans didn't look up, didn't speak, but somehow they all knew they were being watched. "We should leave," Lynn whispered, her voice betraying rare anxiety. Something's happening to the energy field. On her scanner, the gentle pulse they had been monitoring was changing, becoming erratic. Below, an elderly human, Jack, opened his eyes slowly, looking directly toward their hiding spot despite the camouflage technology. "We've been compromised," Rax decided. "Retreat to the surface." As the aliens withdrew, Tom also opened his eyes, feeling a strange sensation he'd never experienced before. Around the chamber, dozens of others were doing the same, their perfect synchronization broken for the first time in memory. Jack's weathered hand found Tom's arm, gripping it with surprising strength. "It has begun," the old man whispered, breaking the silence of the ceremony. "They have come just as the ancients predicted." "Who's come?" Tom asked, his voice sounding strange after hours of silence. "The catalyst." Jack's eyes shone with an emotion Tom couldn't identify. Fear. Excitement. "For 300 years we've maintained the lock. Now they've turned the key." Across the chamber, a young woman named Kate, wearing the insignia of the Earth Defense Corps, was already on her feet, speaking urgently into a communication device. Others were standing too, some looking confused, others with expressions of grim determination. On the empty pedestal at the center, a faint blue glow had appeared, growing stronger by the second. "What's happening?" Tom asked, feeling an odd pressure building behind his eyes. Jack stood, pulling Tom up with him. "The silent worship was never just a ceremony, boy. It was a containment protocol." He looked around at the growing chaos as more people broke formation. "And now it's failing." Above them, racing back to their ship, the 3 aliens didn't yet realize what they had done. They had not merely observed a human ritual, they had disrupted the careful balance that had kept humanity's greatest power dormant for centuries. The final weapon was beginning to wake. The morning after the disruption, chaos reigned in the underground complex. People who had maintained perfect discipline for generations now moved frantically through the corridors, their voices creating a constant buzz that had not been heard in these halls for centuries. Tom followed Jack through the crowd, struggling to keep up with the old man's surprisingly quick pace. His head throbbed with a strange pressure that had started during the ceremony and hadn't stopped since. "Jack, please. You need to explain what's happening," Tom called out. The old keeper finally stopped at a massive stone door marked with ancient symbols. He pressed his palm against it and the door slid open with a low rumble. "In here," Jack said, before the others come looking. The room beyond was small, but filled with technology that looked far more advanced than anything Tom had seen in the settlements. Screens flickered to life as they entered, displaying data streams and what appeared to be brain scans. "Sit," Jack ordered, pointing to a chair in the center of the room. "I need to check your levels." "My levels of what?" Tom asked, but he sat anyway. The chair immediately molded to his form, and sensors emerged from the armrests, attaching themselves to his skin. Jack studied the readings with growing concern. "Just as I feared. Your dormant abilities are awakening faster than most, probably because you were sitting so close to me when the disruption occurred." "What abilities?" "Jack, you've never explained any of this." The old man sighed heavily, his shoulders slumping. "It was never supposed to be necessary. The silent worship was meant to continue forever, keeping the lock in place." He gestured at the screens. "Or at least until we were ready to use what we had contained." Jack tapped several controls, and a holographic display appeared between them. It showed Earth as it had been before the Great Conflict: sprawling cities, massive space stations, vessels traveling between planets. 300 years ago, humanity was expanding throughout the solar system. We were developing technologies that would soon allow us to reach nearby stars, Jack explained. During that research, scientists discovered something unexpected about human consciousness. The display changed, showing brain scans with unusual energy patterns, similar to what Tom had seen on the screens monitoring his own brain. Under certain conditions, the human mind can directly affect physical reality. Telekinesis, telepathy, energy manipulation, abilities that had been dismissed as myths suddenly had scientific basis, Jack continued. The discovery sparked a global race to develop these abilities as weapons. Tom stared at the images, struggling to process what he was hearing. "Are you saying humans are psychic?" "Potentially, yes. All humans carry the genetic capacity for these abilities, but they prove too dangerous, too unpredictable. When the first generation of enhanced humans lost control of their powers, the devastation was catastrophic." The hologram displayed scenes of destruction, cities crumbling, landscapes warped in impossible ways, and strange energy storms tearing across continents. "The survivors made a choice," Jack said solemnly. "Rather than let humanity destroy itself completely, they developed a genetic lock, a modification that suppressed these abilities in future generations. The silent worship was designed as a reinforcement of that lock, creating a psychic field that kept everyone's abilities dormant." Tom touched his temple where the pressure continued to build. "And now that lock is breaking." "Yes. The aliens who observed us, they call themselves the visitors, their presence disrupted the field just enough. And now," Jack gestured at the readings, "it's spreading." Across the complex, Kate Phillips strode purposefully toward the command center. As a captain in Earth's Defense Corps, she had been briefed on the true purpose of the silent worship, though even most military personnel believed it was merely tradition. The center was abuzz with activity when she arrived. Monitors showed disturbances at worship sites across the globe, all experiencing the same phenomenon that had begun in the main chamber. "Report," she demanded. Commander Harris, a stern woman with gray-streaked hair, turned from the main display. "It's happening everywhere. The suppression field is collapsing faster than our models predicted." "Casualties?" 12 so far, mostly older participants whose minds couldn't handle the sudden change. Hundreds more reporting headaches, nosebleeds, and disorientation. Kate nodded grimly. "And the visitors?" "Their ship remains in orbit. We've detected smaller craft entering the atmosphere. They're expanding their surveillance." "They don't know what they've done," Kate said, more to herself than to Harris. "No," the commander agreed, "but they'll find out soon enough." In a small farm 10 miles from the main complex, a young man named Marcus clutched his head in agony as plates and cups began to float around his kitchen. He had never attended the silent worship, claiming it was outdated superstition. Now he screamed as the pressure in his skull built beyond bearing. "Make it stop," he cried to no one in particular. The windows of his home shattered outward. A nearby tree uprooted itself and hovered 6 feet above the ground. Similar scenes were playing out across the settlement. People who had never shown any unusual abilities suddenly found themselves overwhelmed by powers they couldn't control. On the observation deck of the distant Reach, Commander Rax watched the surveillance feeds with growing concern. "Something is happening to them," Lynn said, her voice tight with scientific curiosity. "The energy readings we detected are changing, intensifying." "Explain," Rax demanded. Lynn adjusted the displays. "The field that covered their gathering places is dissipating, but the energy isn't disappearing. It's transferring to individual humans. Each of them is becoming a localized energy source." Dren, who had remained skeptical, now leaned forward with interest. "Weapon potential?" "Unknown but significant," Lynn replied. "If these readings are accurate, some of these humans could potentially generate enough energy to—" An alarm cut her off. One of their surveillance drones had gone dark. "Show me the last transmission," Rax ordered. The screen displayed a human, Marcus, staring directly at the drone despite its stealth technology. His eyes glowed with an unnatural blue light. Then the feed cut to static. "Prepare a capture team," Rax decided. "I want specimens for study." Back in the monitoring room, Jack disconnected Tom from the sensors. "Your abilities are awakening faster than most, but you still have time to learn control," the old keeper said. "Others won't be so fortunate." "What happens to them?" Tom asked. "If they can't stabilize the energy flow, their minds burn out," Jack answered bluntly. "In the early days before the lock was created, thousands died this way." A soft chime sounded, and one of the screens changed to show Kate's face. "Jack, we have a situation," she said. "The aliens have landed capture teams. They're taking people, showing signs of awakening." Jack's face hardened. "They think they've discovered a new phenomenon to study. They don't realize they're dealing with something we've spent centuries containing. We need to move up the timetable," Kate insisted. "Start training the stable ones immediately." "It's too soon," Jack protested. "Most won't survive accelerated awakening." "We don't have a choice. The visitors are already adapting their tactics. They're using some kind of suppression technology on the captives." Tom stepped forward. "I want to help. Tell me what to do." Jack and Kate exchanged a look through the screen. "Bring him to the inner chamber," Kate finally said, "along with anyone else showing Class 3 stability or higher. We start now." As Jack led Tom through deepening levels of the complex, the young man noticed others joining them, people from the ceremony, all looking equally confused and frightened. "Where are we going?" Tom asked. "To the true heart of the silent worship," Jack replied. "The place where it all began, and where humanity's final weapon was forged." They descended a spiral staircase that seemed to go on forever, the air growing cooler with each step. Finally, they entered a perfectly circular chamber. At its center stood the object that should have been on the pedestal above, a crystalline sphere about the size of a human head, pulsing with blue-white energy. "What is it?" Tom whispered, feeling the pressure in his head intensify as he neared. "The sphere. We call it the Echo," Jack said. "It contains the psychic imprint of the first generation of enhanced humans, including their knowledge of how to control the abilities you're now developing." Kate stepped forward from the shadows, at the far side of the room. "And today," she said, "you're going to connect with it." Tom stared at the glowing sphere, both terrified and strangely drawn to it. "Will it hurt?" Jack placed a hand on his shoulder. "Yes, but the alternative is worse. The aliens who woke you won't stop with observation. They never do." "How do you know?" Kate's expression darkened. "Because they're not the first to find us, just the first to get this far." Around them, other confused, awakened humans were being led into the chamber by older keepers. The blue light from the Echo reflected in their eyes as the next phase of humanity's long-dormant plan began to unfold. Dawn broke over the settlement as 3 alien ships descended silently from the clouds. Their sleek, dark hulls absorbed light rather than reflected it, making them appear as moving shadows against the early morning sky. Inside the lead vessel, Commander Rax reviewed the capture priorities one final time. "Target individuals showing the strongest energy signatures," he instructed the strike teams. "Use the suppression nets, They disrupt the strange field these humans are generating. And remember, we need them alive. 20 visitor soldiers checked their equipment. Unlike the observation team, these warriors wore full combat armor. Their normally gray skin completely covered by suits that could withstand extreme conditions. Each carried a specialized weapon designed to incapacitate rather than kill. The High Command is particularly interested in this development, Rax continued. These humans may possess an ability we've never encountered before. Understanding it could be critical to our expansion. Lynn, who had joined the capture team as scientific advisor, studied her scanner. The energy signatures are constantly shifting. Some are growing stronger by the hour. Then we move immediately, Rax decided, before they learn to use whatever power they're developing. The ship split up, each heading toward a different cluster of energy signatures. In the underground inner chamber, Tom's hands shook as he faced the glowing echo. 20 other awakened humans formed a circle around the crystalline sphere, all looking equally terrified and confused. Kate stood at a control panel making final adjustments. The process is simple in theory, she explained. The echo contains the combined knowledge of the first awakened. When you connect with it, you'll receive guidance on how to control your abilities. In theory? Someone asked nervously. Jack stepped forward. There are risks. The echo contains raw experiences, memories of both the wonders and horrors of the Great Conflict. Some minds reject the connection. And what happens then? Tom asked. The old keeper's face grew solemn. Psychic burnout, brain death in severe cases. A murmur of fear passed through the group. We wouldn't ask this of you if there were any alternative, Kate said firmly. But the aliens have already captured 7 awakened humans. We've tracked their ships taking people from the smaller settlements. They're hunting us. Jack nodded. And anyone they take will be studied, dissected, their abilities weaponized against the rest of humanity. Tom swallowed hard, but stepped closer, to the echo. I'll go first. Kate gave him a measuring look, then nodded. Place your hands on the sphere. Try to clear your mind. Don't resist what comes. The moment Tom's fingers touched the crystalline surface, his world exploded into countless fragments of memory and sensation. He was no longer in the chamber. He was everywhere, experiencing everything at once. A woman lifting an entire building with her mind to save trapped children. A man connecting telepathically with thousands, creating a network of shared consciousness. The horror of the First Psychic War, as minds tore into each other across continents. The agony of overextension, blood vessels rupturing as abilities pushed beyond safe limits. The careful research into genetic locks. The desperate plan to save humanity from itself. Tom screamed, but no sound came out. His physical body stood frozen, hands locked to the echo's surface as knowledge 3 centuries old poured into his mind. After what seemed like eternity, but was actually less than a minute, he collapsed to the floor, blood trickling from his nose. Tom! Jack rushed to his side, checking his pulse. Tom's eyes fluttered open, the irises now flecked with the same blue light that emanated from the echo. I understand now, he whispered. Before he could explain further, an alarm blared. Throughout the complex, Kate pressed a hand to her communication device. Report, visitor ships, came the urgent reply. 3 of them approaching from different directions. They're targeting the outlying residences first. They're hunting for awakened humans, Kate realized. Security teams to defensive positions. Get the untrained awakened to the lower levels. Tom struggled to his feet. I can help, he said, his voice stronger than before. I know how now. Kate looked skeptical. You've barely begun to understand your abilities. I don't have them all yet, but I understand the fundamentals, Tom insisted. The echo showed me. We can't just hide. We need to actively defend our people. Jack studied, his former apprentice with pride and concern. What did you see, Tom? Everything. The history, the techniques, the warnings. Tom's eyes glowed brighter. And I saw what happens if the visitors get what they want. In the small farming community, on the outskirts of the main settlement, Marcus hid in his cellar as the alien ship hovered directly over his home. His headache had subsided, replaced by a strange clarity. Objects no longer floated randomly around him. Now they moved according to his will. When the cellar door burst open, he was ready. 2 visitor soldiers in full combat gear descended the stairs, scanning devices leading them directly to him. Human detected, one reported through its communication system. Strong energy signature. Marcus stepped out of the shadows. Looking for me? The soldiers raised their weapons, strange devices that looked like nets made of pulsing energy. Marcus raised his hand. The weapons flew upward, smashing into the ceiling. The soldiers charged, but Marcus felt the power surging through him. With a thought, he lifted both aliens off the ground. They struggled in midair, their armor suddenly seeming heavy and constricting. "You shouldn't have come here," Marcus said, surprised by the coldness in his own voice. He tightened his mental grip. The armor began to buckle inward. Before he could finish the deadly squeeze, a voice cut through his concentration. "Stop!" Tom stood at the top of the cellar stairs, Jack and 2 security officers behind him. "Don't kill them," Tom said, descending slowly. "We need information." Marcus hesitated, then lowered the aliens to the ground, still holding them immobile. "They were going to take me." "I know. They've taken others already." Tom approached one of the soldiers and placed his hand on its helmet. He closed his eyes, concentrating. Images flowed into his mind. The ship above. Other capture teams spread across the region, racks giving orders, the high command demanding specimens. And deeper, something more disturbing. Memories of other worlds, conquered, other species subjugated or eliminated. Tom pulled his hand away, gasping. They've done this 17 times before. Invaded developing worlds, taken what they wanted, eliminated any resistance. He looked at Jack. They were planning the same for Earth even before they discovered the awakenings. Jack nodded grimly. Then we've awakened just in time. A loud crash shook the farmhouse above them. Kate's voice came through their communication devices. "Visitor. Reinforcements incoming. Fall back to the complex." Marcus looked panicked. "There are more people in the surrounding farms. They'll be captured." "We need to coordinate," Tom said firmly. "I can help organize a defense, but not if we're scattered and picked off one by one." Jack put his hand on Marcus's shoulder. "Trust him. What he experienced with the Echo, it's given him insights the rest of us don't have yet." After a moment's hesitation, Marcus nodded. He released his mental hold on the 2 soldiers who collapsed unconscious to the floor. "What about them?" he asked. "Leave them," Tom replied. "They'll report what they saw. It might make the others hesitate before attacking again." As they rushed back toward the main complex, more ships appeared in the sky above. The hunt was intensifying. On the bridge of the distant reach, Commander Rax received the reports with growing concern. 4 capture teams lost contact, Lynn summarized. The last transmission showed a human demonstrating telekinetic abilities far beyond what we anticipated. "Impossible," Dren scoffed. "No species develop such abilities naturally." "This wasn't natural," Rax said quietly. "Remember the chambers, the ceremonies? They've been containing this power, controlling it." He turned to his weapons officer. "Prepare orbital strikes on the largest underground complexes. If we can't capture this power, we must eliminate it." Lynn looked alarmed. "The High Command ordered specimens, not elimination." "The situation has changed," Rax replied coldly. "These humans are not merely developing abilities. They already know how to use them. That suggests this is not a new discovery, but a deliberate defensive activation." "You mean they knew we were coming?" Dren asked incredulously. "Not us specifically, but they were prepared for something." Rax studied the planet below with new respect and caution. "Begin the bombardment in 1 hour. Target their largest underground structures first." As the visitors prepared their attack deep within the Earth complex, Tom stood once more before the Echo. This time, he wasn't alone. 20 more awakened humans had successfully connected with the ancient knowledge source, their eyes now bearing the same blue flecks as his. "They're planning an orbital strike," Tom announced. the information coming to him through a new awareness that extended beyond normal senses. "We don't have much time." Kate looked grim. "Our conventional defenses can't stop their ships." "No," Tom agreed. "But we can." He turned to the circle of newly awakened humans. "It's time to form the first link in 300 years. Jack's eyes widened. "The link? Are you certain? That's the most dangerous technique. It's what led to the catastrophes of the Great Conflict." "It's also our only hope," Tom replied. "Together, our minds united, we might generate enough power to create a shield." Around the chamber, the awakened looked at each other with mixture of fear and determination. None of them had sought this power, this responsibility. But now, as humanity's final weapon began to truly awaken, they had no choice but to master it, or perish in the attempt. The inner chamber hummed with energy as Tom arranged the awakened humans in a precise formation around the echo. 24 individuals stood in concentric circles, their faces tense with concentration. At the center, Tom placed his hands on the crystalline sphere, which now pulsed with light and rhythm with his heartbeat. "The link isn't just combining our abilities," he explained, his voice steady despite the pressure building inside his skull. "It's creating a unified consciousness, a collective mind greater than the sum of its parts." Kate watched from the edge of the room, arms crossed over her chest. As a military officer, she understood conventional warfare, but this was beyond her experience. "How dangerous is this really, Jack?" she whispered to the old keeper beside her. Jack's weathered face was grim. "The first awakened created the link to defend Earth during the Great Conflict. It worked, but the power it generated warped reality itself. Some of the participants were lost completely, their minds burned away by the energy they channeled." "And you're letting Tom attempt this?" she hissed. "Not letting, trusting," Jack corrected. "The knowledge he gained from the echo is more complete than anything I could teach him. He understands the risks better than I do now." In the center of the formation, Tom closed his eyes. "Everyone, clear your minds. Focus on my voice. The link begins with surrender. Let go of your individual concerns and connect to the person on your right and left." A visible wave of blue energy began to flow between the participants, connecting them like a web of light. "Now reach deeper," Tom continued. "Find the core of your awakened ability and open it to the others." The blue web brightened, pulsing with increased power. Several participants gasped as the mental barriers between them began to dissolve. Marcus, standing in the inner circle, suddenly stiffened. "I can feel everyone," he said in wonder. "Their thoughts, their emotions." "Stay focused," Tom warned. "Don't get lost in the connection. Remember your anchor." Before the ceremony, he had instructed each participant to hold firmly to a personal memory, something that defined their individual identity. This anchor would prevent them from being completely absorbed into the collective consciousness. As the link strengthened, Tom's awareness expanded exponentially. He could sense every person in the complex, then everyone in the settlement above. Further still, his mind stretched outward, touching the consciousness of awakened humans across the continent. Miles away, people who had never attended a silent worship suddenly felt a gentle presence in their minds, inviting connection. And above it all, he sensed the visitor ships, cold points of alien intelligence preparing to rain destruction from orbit. "They're targeting the main chamber," Tom announced, his voice now overlaid with multiple harmonic tones as the link spoke through him. "Weapons charging, impact in 7 minutes." Kate pressed her communication device. "All personnel, emergency, evacuation protocol. Move to secure levels 5 through 8 immediately." But Jack remained still, watching Tom with growing amazement. "That won't be necessary," he said softly. "What are you talking about? Their weapons will punch right through." "Watch," Jack interrupted, pointing to the ceiling. Above them, visible, through the link's shared perception, a dome of blue energy was forming over the entire complex, extending several miles in each direction. It shimmered like heat waves over desert sand, nearly transparent but undeniably present. "A shield," Kate whispered. Jack nodded. "The first defense of the awakened. On the bridge of the distant reach, alarms blared as sensors detected the sudden energy surge. "What is that?" Rax demanded, staring at the view screen where a faint blue dome had appeared over their primary target. Lynn worked frantically at her console. "Energy shield of unknown composition. It's like nothing in our database. The power readings are..." She hesitated, rechecking her instruments. "Off the scale. Can our weapons penetrate it?" "Unknown, Commander, but the shield is expanding rapidly." Dren watched with growing unease as the blue dome spread outward, covering more territory with each passing second. "Launch the strike now, before it grows stronger." Rax hesitated only briefly before giving the order. "Fire." Brilliant beams of concentrated energy lanced down from the visitor ships, striking the blue shield with tremendous force. The impact created spectacular corona effects, ripples of power cascading across the dome's surface, but the shield held. "Impossible," Dren whispered. "No planetary defense should withstand a full orbital barrage." Lynn's voice was tight with scientific excitement despite the situation. "Commander, I'm detecting a new phenomenon. The shield isn't just blocking our attack, it's absorbing the energy and growing stronger." Rax's 4 eyes blinked in rapid succession. "Cease fire immediately." But the order came too late. The blue shield pulsed once brightly, then sent a massive surge of energy back along the weapon's paths. The feedback overloaded the visitor's systems, causing explosions across the smaller ships and severe damage to the distant reach. "Emergency protocols," Rax ordered as his bridge filled with smoke and warning alerts. "Withdraw to safe orbit." As the damaged visitor fleet retreated, the blue shield continued to expand, now covering hundreds of square miles and growing. In the inner chamber, the link had reached its full potential. 24 minds functioned as one, with Tom serving as the focal point. Through their combined consciousness, they perceived far beyond normal human limits, and what they saw astonished them. "The markers," Tom said, his voice reverberating with the power of the collective. "They're everywhere." The link's awareness had expanded to cosmic scale, allowing them to perceive something hidden in plain sight. Ancient warning beacons placed around Earth's solar system and dozens of nearby stars. "Placed by who?" Kate asked, her voice seeming distant and small compared to the harmonics of the link. "By us," Jack answered, understanding dawning on his weathered face. "By humanity, before the lock." Through the link, Tom accessed deeper memories stored within the echo, knowledge that had been hidden from even the keepers for centuries. "Earth wasn't always our only home," the link spoke through him. "Before the Great Conflict, humanity had spread to nearby star systems. When the psychic abilities first manifested, when the destruction began, outposts were established throughout local space. Images flowed through the collective consciousness, massive generation ships leaving Earth, colonies established on distant worlds, networks of psychic communication spanning light years. The silent worship wasn't just containing our abilities," Tom continued. "It was preserving them, keeping the connection alive but dormant until needed. The genetic lock wasn't meant to be permanent. It was a safety measure, designed to be released when humanity faced an existential threat." Kate struggled to comprehend the scale of what she was hearing. "You're saying we were once an interstellar civilization with psychic powers?" "More than that," Jack said, old pieces finally fitting together in his mind. "We were the protectors of this region of space." The link showed them more. Other species, peaceful exchanges, cooperative ventures across dozens of worlds. And then the arrival of the first aggressive species, similar to the visitors, but more primitive in their technology. "The Awakened defended not just Earth but all allied worlds," Tom explained, the link's voice growing stronger. "But the power was too great, too tempting. Some began to see themselves as gods rather than guardians." The images darkened. Worlds, torn apart by psychic warfare, reality itself warped by unchecked power. Earth, the origin point of the ability, suffered the worst as factions fought for control. "The survivors made a choice," Tom said. "To save what remained, they created the genetic lock and the silent worship. They established the keepers to maintain the tradition until the day the ability would be needed again. And they placed warning markers, Jack added, telling any who could read them that this region of space was protected, that the sleeping giants should be left in peace. Marcus, still part of the link but able to speak individually, looked awed. The visitors ignored the warnings, or couldn't read them, Kate suggested. If the markers were designed for psychic perception, they were, Tom confirmed. The visitors lack even the most basic psychic sensitivity. They saw the markers but perceived them as natural phenomena, not messages. Jack turned to Kate, his expression grave. Do you understand what this means? The visitors' attack didn't just awaken our defense mechanism, it restored our connection to our true history, our true purpose. Before Kate could respond, Tom suddenly stiffened, the link's energy flaring around him. The visitors are contacting their high command, he announced. They're calling for reinforcements, a full invasion fleet. Alarm spread through the room, but Jack stepped forward, placing a weathered hand on Tom's shoulder. There's more in the echo, isn't there? He asked quietly. More knowledge, more power. Tom nodded slowly, the blue light in his eyes intensifying. The full awakening protocol, it would break the remaining genetic locks worldwide, triggering awakening in every human with the capacity. The casualties would be catastrophic, Kate protested. You said yourself many minds can't handle sudden awakening. True, Jack acknowledged. But what choice do we have? The visitors won't stop with one attempt if their entire fleet comes. Tom's expression became distant as the link processed possibilities, calculating outcomes with the combined intelligence of 24 enhanced minds. There is another way, he said finally. A controlled global awakening, guided by those of us already connected. Is that possible? Kate asked. Difficult, but yes, Tom replied. The First Awakened designed fail-safes for exactly this scenario, but it will require sacrifice. He turned to Jack, his expression somber. Someone must serve as the conduit for the initial pulse, channeling enough energy to reach every human simultaneously. Understanding dawned on Jack's face. And no one could survive being that conduit. Tom nodded slowly. The echo contains the procedure. A single keeper must connect directly to its core, becoming a living amplifier for the awakening signal. I'll do it, Jack said without hesitation. It's what I've prepared for my entire life, though I never knew it until now. Kate started to protest, but Jack silenced her with a raised hand. My time is nearly done anyway, and this is the purpose of all our generations of keeping the silence. He smiled sadly. To speak again, when the time was right. As the link maintained the shield against potential further attacks, preparations began for humanity's full reawakening. The final weapon, not a device of destruction but the collective consciousness of an entire species, was about to be completely unleashed after 3 centuries of slumber. And high above Earth, the visitor fleet regrouped, still unaware that they had not merely disturbed a primitive religious ritual, but had triggered the return of the greatest power their kind had ever encountered. 3 days after the failed orbital strike, Earth appeared deceptively calm from space. The blue shield had contracted, now covering only the major underground complexes. To the approaching visitor reinforcements, it might have seemed that the initial threat was contained. They were gravely mistaken. In the deepest level of the main complex, preparations for the global awakening reached their final stage. The inner chamber had been transformed, with the echo now suspended above a circular platform where Jack stood alone. Concentric rings of awakened humans surrounded him, their minds linked in a vast supporting network. Tom stood at the innermost circle, the strain of maintaining the link evident on his face. 48 minds now connected through him, twice the original number as more humans successfully underwent the awakening process. The visitor fleet will reach Earth orbit in approximately 6 hours, he announced, the link's harmonic voice echoing through the chamber. 7 capital ships, 22 support vessels. Their weapons are significantly more powerful than the initial attack force. Kate studied the tactical display projected onto one wall of the chamber. Even with our conventional defenses and the shield, we can't stop a fleet that size. We don't need to stop them, Jack said calmly. We just need time for the protocol to complete. The old keeper looked different now, more vibrant despite his years, his eyes glowing with the same blue light that marked all the awakened. He had spent decades maintaining the silent worship, never fully understanding its purpose. Now, in his final hours, he had found perfect clarity. The echo is ready, he said. The amplification circuits are calibrated. Once activated, the pulse will reach every human on Earth simultaneously. Tom stepped forward, breaking formation briefly to stand before his mentor. Jack, there must be another way. The link is growing stronger. Maybe if we wait, gather more awakened. Jack shook his head. The calculations are clear. We need a global response to face this threat. He placed a hand on Tom's shoulder. This was always my destination, though I didn't know it. The keepers have prepared for generations, passing down the knowledge, maintaining the silent worship. Now we understand why. Tom embraced the old man, fighting back tears. I'll make sure it wasn't in vain. I know you will. Jack stepped away, moving to the center of the platform. Begin the sequence. Kate took her position at the control system. Despite not being awakened herself, her military training made her the ideal operator for the technical aspects of the protocol. Energy channeling systems online, bioconnectors active. The echo began to pulse more rapidly, its light synchronizing with Jack's heartbeat. Fine tendrils of blue energy extended from the sphere, connecting to specific points on Jack's body: forehead, throat, chest, palms. Neural interface established, Kate reported. Power levels rising. Jack closed his eyes, his face serene despite the enormous energies beginning to flow through him. I can feel them, he whispered. All of them. Every human mind on Earth. Final authorization required, Kate said, looking to Tom. There was a moment of hesitation, a final acknowledgement of what they were about to unleash. Then Tom nodded. Proceed. Kate pressed her palm against the activation plate. Global Awakening Protocol initiated. The echo flared with blinding light as Jack's body arched backward, becoming a living conduit for powers that had been dormant for centuries. Blue energy coursed through him, amplified 1,000-fold, then radiated outward in an expanding sphere that passed through walls, earth, and ocean, as if they were not there. Around the world, humans stopped in mid-motion as the wave touched them. In fields and factories, in homes and schools, 7 billion people simultaneously experienced the same momentary connection, a gentle but insistent awakening, calling forth abilities long suppressed by the genetic lock. Not all would develop full abilities. The Echo's designers had been wiser this time, creating safeguards that would limit awakening based on individual capacity. But everyone would feel the connection, the awareness that humanity was more than they had believed. In the chamber, Jack's physical form began to lose cohesion, turning translucent as the energies consumed him. Still he stood, channeling the power until the pulse had completed its global journey. It is done, he said, his voice no longer coming from his dissolving body, but resonating directly in the minds of everyone present. Then, with a final smile, Jack vanished entirely, his consciousness merging with the echo itself, becoming part of the collective knowledge that would guide the newly awakened. Tom felt the connection break, a sensation like a great weight lifted from his shoulders. The link remained, but Jack's presence within it was gone. Kate looked up from her console, tears streaking her face despite her military composure. Energy pulse complete, global distribution at 97% effectiveness. And Jack? Marcus asked softly. He's everywhere now. Tom answered, touching the echo gently. Part of all of us. There was no time for further mourning. The tactical display flashed with new warnings as the visitor fleet entered final approach. There, moving into attack formation, Kate reported. Weapons systems charging. They'll be in range in 19 minutes. Tom straightened, facing the gathered awakened. It's time to show them who we really are. Commander Rack stood on the bridge of the flagship Sovereign Will, a vessel 10 times the size of his damaged scout ship. Around him, the military might. of the visitor empire prepared to subjugate yet another world. Scans confirm the defensive shield is limited to these regions, reported the tactical officer, highlighting several areas on the global display. Our combined firepower should overwhelm them quickly. Admiral Vex, the fleet commander, nodded in satisfaction. Begin the attack sequence. Target their shield generators first, then their population centers. Standard conquest protocol. Rax hesitated. Admiral, I recommend caution. These humans have demonstrated abilities we don't fully understand. Your failure to capture specimens has been noted, Commander. Vex replied coldly. Stand aside and observe how a proper military operation is conducted. As the fleet moved into firing position, something unexpected appeared on their sensors. Thousands of small energy signatures rising from Earth's surface. What are those? Vex demanded. The sensor officer adjusted his instruments. Impossible. They appear to be humans, Admiral, flying without vehicles. Outside the viewports they could see them now, glowing figures ascending through the atmosphere, surrounded by blue auras that protected them from the vacuum of space. Thousands of awakened humans, their abilities now fully active, rising to meet the invasion fleet. Open fire, Vex ordered, panic edging into his voice. The massive weapons of the visitor fleet discharged, sending destructive energy toward the approaching humans. But the beams never reached their targets. Each blast was caught, contained, and redirected by telekinetic barriers generated by the awakened. Among the defenders, Tom floated at the center of a formation that mirrored the Yao link structure below. His consciousness extended through the network of minds, coordinating their response with precision that would have been impossible for individuals acting alone. They rely on technology. His thoughts flowed through the link. We are the technology. The awakened responded as one, extending their combined telekinetic grip to the nearest visitor ships. Metal groaned as invisible forces compressed hull plating. Engines sputtered and died as their internal components were gently but firmly disassembled. On the flagship's bridge, systems failed in cascading sequence. Even the artificial gravity fluctuated, leaving the visitors floating helplessly. What is happening? Vex demanded, clinging to his command chair. Rax watched through the viewport as the awakened humans approached, their expressions not angry or vengeful, but determined. They're showing us the difference between conquest and defense, he said softly. This is why the markers were placed. What markers? What are you talking about? Vex snapped. Before Rax could answer, the bridge view screen activated on its own. Tom's face appeared, his eyes glowing with blue light. This ends now, he said, his voice somehow transmitting despite the ship's communications being offline. Your invasion fleet is disabled. You will not be harmed, but you will leave this system immediately. Vex snarled in defiance. The visitor empire does not retreat. This planet will be... His voice cut off as Tom raised a hand, not choking or harming the Admiral, simply preventing sound from leaving his mouth. You misunderstand, Tom continued calmly. This is not a negotiation. Through the link, we have accessed your navigation systems. Your ships are already being redirected home. Indeed, across the fleet, engines were reactivating, turning the massive vessels away from Earth. No amount of manual override from the crews had any effect. When you return, Tom said, you will deliver a message to your high command. This region of space is protected. It always has been. The markers you ignored were warnings, placed by humanity centuries ago when we first ventured among the stars. Tom's image seemed to grow, filling the screen. We are not a primitive species you can conquer. We are the guardians of this sector, and we have awakened. The screen went dark as the flagship, along with the entire visitor fleet, accelerated away from Earth at speeds their engines shouldn't have been capable of generating. 1 month later, Tom stood on a hillside overlooking the main settlement. Below, the world was transforming. New structures rose without construction equipment as awakened humans used telekinesis to place materials. Others used their abilities to heal the land, accelerate crop growth, or generate clean energy. Kate joined him, wearing her military uniform but with a new insignia. the echo symbol, signifying her role as liaison between conventional forces and the awakened. "The satellite network is complete," she reported. "We can now monitor the warning markers across 50 light-years." Tom nodded. "And the old outposts?" "We've received signals from 3 so far. It seems there were survivors, human colonies that maintained their own version of the silent worship all this time." Jack would have been pleased to know he wasn't alone in his vigil, Tom said softly. Kate looked up at the night sky, where a faint blue shimmer, invisible to normal eyes but clear to the awakened, marked the extended protective field now surrounding Earth's solar system. "What happens now?" she asked. "The visitors won't be the last to come." "No," Tom agreed, "but we'll be ready. Not as conquerors. Jack was right about the dangers of that path, but as guardians, the role we were meant to fulfill before the great conflict." In the settlement below, the daily silent worship continued, but with a difference. Instead of maintaining silence to suppress their abilities, the participants now used the time to refine their control, to connect with the growing network of awakened minds across the planet and beyond. "We've been given a second chance," Tom said, "to use these gifts properly, to become what we were meant to be." He turned to Kate with a smile. "And it all began because some aliens entered the silent worship and woke humanity's final weapon," she finished. But they both knew that the weapon wasn't the psychic abilities themselves. It was what the abilities enabled: connection, understanding, and the restoration of humanity's forgotten legacy among the stars. As night deepened, more awakened humans joined them on the hillside, their eyes reflecting the blue light of distant suns where human consciousness would soon reach once again, not to conquer, but to reconnect with their cosmic heritage. And, somewhere within the collective awareness that now spanned the globe, Jack's consciousness continued to guide them, his lifetime of keeping the silence finally rewarded with the universe of voices he had helped to awaken.
Instead of forcing them to become weak, Walker continued, "I propose we help them become strong. Not by giving them everything at once, but by guiding them, teaching them, helping them develop their own unique contributions to our galactic community." The vote was unanimous. The new council would not repeat the mistakes of the old. They would not fear the strength of others or try to control it. Instead, they would help nurture it, guide it, and welcome the new perspectives it would bring. Later, in his private chamber, Walker looked out at the stars. A fleet of ships passed by his window, their hulls flowing and shifting with the latest adaptive technology, but now bearing the symbols of a dozen different species working together. Each ship was a testament to what could be achieved when diversity was celebrated rather than suppressed. Maria found him there, still watching the fleet. "The first combined species research team made a breakthrough today," she said without preamble. "They found a way to apply adaptive architecture at the molecular level. Medical nanobots that can change their structure to fight any disease. The Republic had the basic technology for centuries, but they never thought to develop it further." Walker smiled. "Because they never understood the most important lesson. True strength doesn't come from forcing others to be weak. It comes from learning to adapt, to change, to grow stronger together." A new alert appeared on his display. One of the emerging civilizations had sent out its first faster-than-light probe. Soon, they would make contact with the wider galaxy. But unlike Earth's first contact, they wouldn't find an arrogant council demanding they weaken themselves. They would find a community ready to welcome them, to learn from them, to grow stronger together. The old council had tried to weaken humanity, seeing their drive and determination as a threat. Instead, they had forced humanity to become something new, not just a strong species, but one that understood the true meaning of strength. Now, as Walker watched the combined fleet move against the stars, he knew the galaxy would never be the same. The Council had tried to weaken them. Instead, they had created something far more powerful than military might. They had created a future where strength came from unity, where innovation came from diversity, and where every species had the chance to reach its full potential. They had created a galaxy where adaptation and cooperation would always triumph over stagnation and control. As the last ships disappeared into faster-than-light travel, Walker thought about how far they had come. From a species forced to destroy its own fleet to the leaders of a new galactic age. The stars seemed brighter now, full of possibility rather than threat. The Council had tried to weaken them, but they had become something greater than anyone could have imagined. They had become the guardians of a truly united galaxy. The new Galactic Council chamber looked nothing like the old one. Gone were the towering thrones that had placed the Republic's representatives above everyone else. Instead, a circular table dominated the room, with every seat at the same height. Captain Walker, newly promoted to Admiral, sat in Earth's seat, looking at the faces around him. Representatives from 17 formerly subjugated species, plus Trell, and a handful of other council members who had helped expose the Republic's true nature. The Liberation fleets have reached the outer colonies, a representative from the Meridian species reported. Their people had been among the first to embrace Earth's offer of help. The Republic's control systems are being dismantled. Their labor camps. The alien's voice trembled slightly. Our people are coming home. 3 months had passed since the battle in Earth's solar system. The Republic's defeat had broken their grip on power, and with it, their ability to maintain control over the species they had integrated over the centuries. Earth's adaptive fleet, now expanded and improved, had led the charge to free the subjugated worlds. Dr. Thompson's team has finished analyzing the Republic's central database, Walker announced to the chamber. The extent of their deception went deeper than we imagined. Every major technological advancement they claimed to have invented was actually stolen from species they conquered. They didn't innovate. They just took what others created and kept it for themselves. Maria stood from her seat next to him, activating a holographic display in the center of the table. But they didn't understand most of what they stole. They used it, but they never improved it, never adapted it. That's why our enhanced version of their shield technology worked so well against them. We didn't just copy it, we made it better. The chamber filled with murmurs as representatives studied the data. Thousands of years of technological theft, all designed to keep the Republic in power, while other species were forced to remain weak. But their strategy had finally failed when they encountered a species that turned restrictions into inspiration. The former Republic worlds have submitted their request for membership in the new council. Trell said, his voice steady now that he no longer had to fear reprisal. Under the new rules, of course. No special privileges. No hidden technology. Everything shared openly. Walker nodded. The remnants of the Republic had surrendered 2 weeks ago, after Earth's adaptive ships had demonstrated their ability to bypass even the oldest and strongest planetary defenses. The Republic's leaders had expected a revenge-fueled occupation. Instead, they found humanity offering something different, a chance to join a truly equal galactic community. Our next phase of development is ready, Maria said, changing the holographic display. We're calling it the Unity Project, combining Earth's adaptive architecture with technological innovations from all member species, not just for ships, but for everything. Buildings, tools, even medical technology. Everyone contributes, everyone benefits. The chamber erupted in excited discussion. Species that had been kept apart by the Republic's lies were now sharing ideas, offering their own unique perspectives on how to improve and adapt the technology. Walker watched with satisfaction as ancient barriers broke down, replaced by genuine cooperation. A small alert flashed on his display, a message from Admiral Stone back on Earth. The first class of the new Combined Fleet Academy was ready to begin training. Officers from every member species would learn to work together, sharing their knowledge and experience. Earth's adaptive ship technology would be the foundation, but every species would add their own innovations. There's one more item we need to discuss, Walker said, bringing the chamber to order. We've detected 3 emerging civilizations reaching for the stars. Under the old council, they would have been labeled as too aggressive and forced to weaken themselves. I suggest we take a different approach. He activated his own holographic display, showing 3 young species taking their first steps into space. Their ships were primitive by current standards, but their design showed innovation, creativity, and determination, just like humanity had shown before the old council arrived. All ships linked. Combat transformation sequences optimized for Republic targeting systems. They won't know what hit them. Walker took a deep breath. All ships, execute attack pattern Omega. Full combat transformation. 20 ships emerged from Mars's shadow, but they didn't emerge as they had entered. Each vessel flowed and shifted, weapons appearing where none had existed, shields rippling with power that shouldn't have been possible. Before the Republic fleet could react, Earth's ships had already changed configuration 3 times, each transformation bringing new weapons to bear. The battle that followed would be studied for centuries to come. The Republic's ships were powerful, their technology refined over thousands of years. But they were static, unchanging, their crews trained to fight in exactly the same way that had brought them victory for millennia. They weren't prepared for ships that could adapt mid-battle, for vessels that could split apart and reform, for weapons that could shift position faster than their targeting systems could track. Their formations are breaking, Walker's tactical officer reported with barely contained excitement. They can't maintain their attack patterns against our transformations. Through his tactical display, Walker watched as the Republic fleet tried to adjust. When they concentrated their fire on one Earth ship, it would transform, splitting into smaller components that their targeting couldn't track. When they tried to surround an Earth vessel, it would reconfigure into a form their tactics hadn't accounted for. Guardian 3 is taking heavy fire, came a report. Walker watched as the ship in question seemed to dissolve, its structure flowing like water as it reformed into 3 smaller vessels that darted between the Republic ships, their weapons finding weak points in the ancient shields. 2 Republic cruisers fell to the unexpected attack. They're trying to retreat, someone reported. Half their fleet is already destroyed or disabled. Walker opened a channel to the Republic flagship. You came here expecting to find a weak species ready for conquest. Instead, you found out what happens when you force humanity to innovate. Your restrictions didn't weaken us. They made us stronger than you could imagine. The Republic fleet was in full retreat now, their perfect formations shattered. Their ancient tactics proved useless against humanity's adaptability. Of the 100 ships that had arrived, barely 40 were limping back to faster-than-light speed. Earth's 20 ships reformed into their standard configurations, their hulls bearing scars but their crews triumphant. Send a message to the Galactic Council, Walker ordered. Tell them humanity is ready to discuss new terms for our membership. And this time, we'll be doing the talking. As the adrenaline of battle faded, Walker looked at the tactical display showing their victory. The Council had tried to weaken them, to make them easy prey for conquest. Instead, they had forced humanity to become something new, a power that could adapt faster than any static force could handle. The galaxy would never be the same. The truth came from an unexpected source. 1 year after the pirate attack, a council observer named Trell requested a private meeting with Admiral Stone. Captain Walker and Dr. Thompson were present when the small, gray-skinned alien arrived at the underground facility on Mars, his usual pristine uniform wrinkled from nervous fidgeting. "I can't stay long," Trell said, his translator struggling to keep up with his rapid speech. "If they discover I'm here, but you need to know. The restrictions on Earth weren't about peace. They were never about peace." Walker watched as the alien pulled out a data crystal, his hands shaking. "What do you mean?" "The Republic of Stars. They've been doing this for thousands of years. Find promising species, label them as too aggressive, force them to weaken themselves. Then, when the species has lost its ability to defend itself." Trell's large eyes darted around the room. "They take everything. Resources, territories, people. They call it integration, but it's conquest." Maria took the data crystal, already moving to a secure terminal. "How many species?" 17 in the last millennium alone. All now member states of the Republic. all providing resources and labor to feed the Republic's expansion. Trell's voice grew quieter. Earth is next. The Council votes tomorrow on a resolution for complete integration of human territories. They're sending their fleet, 100 ships, maybe more. Walker felt his blood run cold. When? 3 days. They think you're defenseless now. They've seen your reports, your weak response to the pirate attack. They believe. Trell stopped, finally noticing his surroundings properly for the first time. The underground facility, the ships being worked on, the advanced technology scattered around the lab. What is all this? Admiral Stone smiled grimly. Insurance against exactly this situation. The alien's eyes widened as understanding dawned. The pirate attack. Those ships that drove them off. They weren't just civilian vessels, were they? No, Walker said. They weren't. Maria's voice cut through the tension. The data is genuine. Complete technical specifications of the Republic's fleet. Their attack plans. Everything. She looked up from her terminal. They're not just coming to take our resources. They want our people for their labor camps. They think we'll be good workers once we're properly pacified. Walker turned to Admiral Stone. How many ships do we have ready? 15. All with the latest adaptive systems. We can have 5 more ready in 48 hours if we push it. 20 ships against 100. Trell's translator couldn't quite convey his tone, but his body language showed clear disbelief. Maria smiled. 20 ships that can change faster than they can target. 20 ships with shield technology we've improved beyond their original designs. 20 ships with crews who've been training for this moment for a year. She paused, looking at her screens again. And now we have their complete technical specifications. The next 48 hours were a blur of activity. The Council's observers, except for Trell, were politely detained in their quarters under the guise of a routine security exercise. Earth's adaptive fleet gathered in the shadow of Mars, using the planet's magnetic field to mask their energy signatures. Maria's team worked nonstop, incorporating the new tactical data into their combat systems. Walker stood on the bridge of his ship, now designated as Guardian 1, as they made final preparations. The formerly smooth hull now rippled constantly, micro-adjustments happening every second as the AI systems ran combat simulations using the Republic's data. All ships report ready, his tactical officer announced. Adaptive systems at peak efficiency. The Republic fleet has entered the solar system, another officer reported. They're not trying to hide their approach. They expect no resistance. Walker opened a channel to the entire fleet. This is exactly what we've trained for. They think they're here to enslave a weak species that can't defend itself. Let's show them how wrong they are. The Republic fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel in perfect attack formation. 100 ships, their ancient hulls gleaming with power, arranged in the same patterns they used to subjugate species for thousands of years. Their commander's voice boomed across all frequencies. People of Earth, by order of the Galactic Council, your territories are now under direct Republic control. Surrender your remaining ships and prepare for integration. Walker signaled Maria, who was coordinating the fleet's adaptive systems from her command center on Mars. Ready? The response was instantaneous. Both Earth ships seemed to explode into motion, their hulls flowing like liquid metal as hidden weapons emerged. The pirate ship closest to them tried to back away, but it was too late. Before its crew could react, they found themselves facing 2 fully armed warships where civilian transports had been moments before. What the hell? The pirates' shock came clearly through the comm channel. Walker didn't waste time responding. All weapons, fire. The battle that followed was short but intense. The pirate ships were more advanced than Earth's old fleet had been, but they weren't prepared for vessels that could reconfigure themselves mid-battle. When they adjusted their shields to block energy weapons, the Earth ships transformed to use projectile attacks. When they tried to target weapon systems, those systems simply relocated to different parts of the hull. 3 pirate ships were destroyed in the first exchange of fire. The 4th tried to run, but was caught in a crossfire when Long Haul 9 transformed into a pursuit configuration, its entire structure streamlining for speed. The 5th and 6th ships attempted to use the colony as a shield, but that proved to be their final mistake. Walker's ship transformed again, splitting its structure in a way that should have been impossible for a vessel its size. The pirates found themselves caught between 2 half-ships, each operating independently, but in perfect coordination. Their shields failed under the assault, and their weapons couldn't track targets that kept changing shape and position. "Please," the pirate leader's voice had lost all its earlier confidence. "We surrender. We didn't know this was a protected colony." "You knew there were innocent people here," Walker replied. "You just thought no one could stop you." He opened a channel to the colony. "New Hope, are you receiving?" "We're here, Captain." The colony leader's voice was shaking with relief. "We saw everything." "How? What kind of ships are those?" "Just some old civilian transports," Walker said, unable to keep a small smile from his face. "The Council was kind enough to let us keep them." The cleanup took several hours. The surviving pirates were taken into custody, their ships secured for study. Walker made sure the colony's defenses were repaired, using parts that just happened to be in their cargo holds. Parts that would let the colony mask its true defensive capabilities, just as the Earth ships did. It was only when they were heading home that Walker allowed himself to relax slightly. They had just won their first real battle with the adaptive ships, against enemies using technology that should have been beyond them. The Council's restrictions, meant to keep humanity weak, had forced them to become something new. "Incoming message from Earth," his communications officer reported. "The Council representatives are demanding a full report on the pirate incident." "Send them the official log," Walker ordered. 2 civilian support ships responded to a distress call. "Found the colony under attack. The pirates fled when we arrived. No significant combat occurred." And the destroyed pirate ships must have destroyed each other in their hurry to escape. Criminals can be so untrustworthy. The Council would believe it because they wanted to believe it. They would see what they expected. A weak species dependent on their protection, unable to defend even their own colonies effectively. They would never suspect that their efforts to restrict humanity had led to the creation of something far more dangerous than the fleet they had forced Earth to dismantle. As they approached Mars, Walker looked at the stream of data from the battle. Every transformation, every adaptation, had been recorded and analyzed. The next generation of ships would be even better, incorporating lessons learned from actual combat. The Council thought they were watching humanity gradually accepting its place as a minor power. They were wrong. They were watching humanity become something unprecedented in the galaxy, a power that could adapt faster than anyone could predict. The pirates had learned that lesson today. The Council would learn it too, when the time was right. The distress call came from New Hope Colony, Earth's farthest outpost. Captain Walker was in the Mars facility when the message arrived, its content brief but chilling. "Under attack. Multiple hostile ships. Council not responding. Please help." Admiral Stone's face was grim on the emergency comm channel. "The Council is deliberating on how to respond. Their nearest patrol ship is 3 days away. They've advised the colony to surrender to the pirates and wait for diplomatic solutions." Walker's hands clenched into fists. New Hope was home to 5,000 civilians. Engineers, armors, families who had gone to build a new life on the edge of human space. How many ships do the pirates have? Long-range scans show 6 vessels, heavily armed. Old Republic designs, probably stolen. They're not Council ships, but they're more advanced than anything Earth had before. Stone paused, a slight smile crossing his face. "Before our recent innovations, how many ships can we send without attracting Council attention?" 2. "We're allowed emergency response vessels for our colonies. I'm giving you command of Long Haul 7 and 9. Officially, you're bringing medical supplies and evacuation ships." Walker was already moving. heading for the docking bay where their most advanced ships waited. And unofficially, Captain, show them what humanity's weakened fleet can do. The two ships launched within the hour. To any observer, they looked like exactly what their registration claimed: civilian support vessels on a humanitarian mission. The Council's patrol ships logged their departure and went back to their routine monitoring. No one paid attention to the small crew numbers or the unusual power readings that were quickly masked by the ship's adaptive systems. New Hope Colony, this is Captain Walker of the Earth Defense Force. Help is coming. Hold on. The response was broken, filled with static. They've taken out our main communications array. They're demanding we surrender the colony's resources, our people, everything. Just hold on. We're 6 hours out. Those 6 hours were the longest of Walker's life. Both ships pushed their engines to the limit, while the crews ran combat drills with the adaptive systems. They had trained for this, but training was different from actual combat. Everything would depend on timing, on perfect coordination between the crews and their ship's AI systems. They dropped out of faster-than-light travel just outside the colony's system. The pirates' ships were easy to spot. 6 vessels arranged in an attack formation around the colony. Their weapons were powered up, but they weren't firing. They were waiting for the colony's surrender. They haven't spotted us yet, Walker's tactical officer reported. Their sensors are focused on the colony. Walker opened a channel to Long Haul 9. Remember, wait for my signal. Let them think we're harmless until we're in position. Both Earth ships approached openly, broadcasting civilian identification codes. Walker watched as the pirate ships adjusted their positions slightly, probably preparing to demand that the newcomers leave or surrender. This is restricted space, a rough voice came over the comm. Turn back or be destroyed. Walker signaled his communications officer to respond. This is a medical transport responding to an emergency call. We have wounded to evacuate. Perfect timing, the pirate replied with a laugh. You can help us load our new slaves. Prepare to be boarded. The nearest pirate ship began moving toward them. Walker watched the distance counter tick down. They needed the enemy close enough that they couldn't react in time, but not so close that they'd be caught in their own transformation energy wake. Now, Walker ordered when the distance hit optimal range. Full combat transformation. All weapons free. Transformation complete, the AI announced. Shield strength at 120% of Council baseline specifications. Maria's voice came over the comm from the engineering section. We're not just matching their shield technology, we're exceeding it. The adaptive power distribution system is more efficient than their original design. They spent the next 4 hours putting the ship through its paces. The shield strength actually increased during rapid transformations, as the adaptive systems learned to channel the energy flows more efficiently. The weapons, hidden within the civilian configuration, deployed faster than any traditional system could match. Run the numbers again, Walker ordered after their final test. How does this ship compare to a Council vessel of similar size? The AI took a moment to calculate. Based on observed Council ship performance data, our shield strength is superior, our weapon systems are comparable, and our ability to adapt during combat gives us a significant tactical advantage. In a one-on-one engagement, this ship would have a 70% chance of victory against a standard Council warship. Maria's laugh echoed through the comm. And they think they're helping us by sharing their basic technology. How soon can we upgrade the rest of the fleet? Stone asked from his observer position in a nearby shuttle. Now that we know it works, 2 weeks per ship, running parallel installations, we can have the entire permitted fleet upgraded within 2 months. Walker watched as the ship transformed back into its civilian configuration, all traces of its military capability vanishing like they had never existed. On the surface, Earth's space fleet was exactly what the Council wanted, small, weak, and unthreatening. But every ship they had allowed humanity to keep was becoming something new, something that combined Earth's innovation with the Council's own technology. We should thank them. Really, Walker said, more to himself than anyone else. They thought limiting our fleet would keep us weak. Instead, they forced us to make every ship count. The return journey to the Mars facility was quiet. Everyone lost in their own thoughts. They were building something unprecedented. A fleet that could transform from harmless civilian vessels into advanced warships in moments. Every restriction the Council placed on them had only pushed them to become more innovative, more efficient. The Council's observers continued their weekly inspections, writing their reports about humanity's successful pacification. They never noticed that the ships they were inspecting could transform into something far more dangerous than anything humanity had possessed before their arrival. They never realized that their own technology was being adapted and improved in ways they hadn't thought possible. As Walker watched Long Haul 7 dock in the Mars facility, he thought about the future. Somewhere out there, the Council was probably congratulating themselves on successfully containing another aggressive species. But they had made a fundamental mistake. They had assumed that making humanity's fleet smaller would make humanity itself weaker. They would learn their mistake eventually. And when they did, they would discover that they hadn't weakened humanity. They had forced them to become stronger than ever before. 6 months into the Council's oversight, Earth's space looked empty. Where once hundreds of military vessels had patrolled, now only a handful of ships remained. The Council observers wrote glowing reports about humanity's compliance. Their weekly inspections found exactly what they expected to find: a weakened species accepting its place in the galactic order. They never bothered to look deeper into the caves of Mars. Deep within the Red Planet's extensive cave networks, Captain Walker watched as Dr. Thompson's team installed the latest version of the adaptive architecture into their 5th ship. The vessel, officially registered as a cargo hauler, hung suspended in the massive underground dock. Its hull rippled like water as the new systems came online. "The reaction time is twice as fast now," Maria said, not looking up from her tablet. Dark circles under her eyes betrayed the long hours she'd been working, but her voice was energetic. "And we've solved the power drain issue from the quick shift systems." Walker nodded, watching as sections of the hull flowed and reformed. "How many crew members to operate at full capacity?" "That's the best part." Now Maria did look up, a proud smile on her face. "We've integrated a new AI system. One person could fly it if needed, though a crew of 3 would be optimal. The AI handles most of the transformation calculations and power distribution." Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Admiral Stone. The older man looked more relaxed these days, now that their secret project was showing real results. "The Council's feeding us some interesting information," he said without preamble. "They're starting to share their approved technology database with us." Maria's eyes lit up. "Anything useful?" "Better than useful." Stone activated a holographic display, showing complex technical specifications. "They're so convinced of our compliance that they've given us access to their basic shield designs. Apparently, it's a reward for our good behavior." Walker couldn't help but laugh. "They're giving us the tools to beat them. They don't think we're capable of understanding it properly, let alone improving it," Maria said, already scanning through the specifications. "These designs, yes, I can work with this. The power distribution system they use is actually quite similar to what we developed for the adaptive ships. We could integrate their shield technology with our transformation systems." "How long?" Stone asked. 2 weeks, maybe less. We'll install it in the next ship first. Use it as a test bed." She was already making notes, her fingers flying over her tablet. "If it works, we can retrofit the other ships quickly." Walker studied the holographic display. "The Council really has no idea what we're doing, do they?" "They see what they expect to see," Stone said. "Their civilization is old. They'd forgotten what it's like to have to fight for survival, to innovate under pressure. They think they're watching us slowly accept our place as a minor species under their protection." The next 2 weeks were a blur of activity. Maria's team worked around the clock, integrating the Council's shield technology with their adaptive systems. Walker spent his time running simulations, learning how to fight with a ship that could transform at will. The Council's observers continued their regular inspections, never noticing the increased traffic to Mars, disguised as routine supply runs. The test day came sooner than expected. Walker stood on the bridge of the test ship, designated as Long Haul 7 in official records, as they prepared for the first full system trial. They had moved to the far side of Mars, using the planet's bulk to hide them from casual observation. All systems online, the ship's AI reported. Its voice was smooth, confident, ready for transformation sequence. Walker took a deep breath. Begin full combat transformation. Integrate shield systems. The change began instantly. The hull flowed like quicksilver, weapon ports emerging, the entire structure reconfiguring for maximum combat efficiency. But this time, something new happened. As the transformation completed, a shimmer of energy enveloped the ship, the Council's shield technology, perfectly integrated with their adaptive systems. Walker studied the simulation again. The ship had transformed from a destroyer configuration into something that looked almost like a civilian transport, then back again. How many people know about this? Just Admiral Stone, you, me, and my core team. We're keeping it quiet, even from most of the Earth Defense Force. The fewer people who know, the less chance of the Council finding out. Walker nodded. How can I help? Maria's smile widened. I need someone to command the first test ship. Someone who can think creatively about how to use this technology in real combat situations. The Admiral suggested you. For the first time since the Council arrived, Walker felt the weight on his shoulders lighten slightly. They weren't beaten. Not yet. Over the next few weeks, Walker split his time between supervising the fleet's dismantling above ground and working with Maria's team below. The Council's observers never questioned his frequent visits to the civilian research facility. Why would they? From their perspective, humanity was doing exactly what they demanded, weakening themselves to become acceptable members of the galactic community. The first prototype was ready for testing a month later. They ran the trials in the asteroid belt, far from the Council's usual patrol routes. Walker stood on the bridge of the ship, officially designated as a mining support vessel, and gave the order. Initiate adaptive sequence. The ship shuddered. Through the viewport, Walker watched in amazement as the hull flowed like quicksilver. Weapon ports emerged where there had been none. The ship's entire profile changed, becoming sleeker, more predatory. When the transformation was complete, his mining support vessel had become a warship more advanced than anything Earth had possessed before the Council arrived. Transformation complete, the ship's AI reported. All systems functional. New configuration stable. Walker touched the newly formed tactical console. How long to return to civilian configuration? 30 seconds in emergency conditions, 15 seconds with full power available. He smiled. The Council thought they were watching Earth destroy its capacity for war. Instead, they were watching the birth of something new. Every ship they allowed Earth to keep would be replaced with one of these adaptive vessels. Their small fleet wouldn't just be for show. It would be the most advanced naval force humanity had ever created. Begin return sequence, he ordered. Let's get back before we're missed. As the ship transformed back into its civilian disguise, Walker thought about the Council speaker's words. Your species is too aggressive for full membership. They had meant it as a criticism, a reason to keep humanity down. But they had forgotten something important about humans. They were at their most innovative, their most determined, when someone told them they couldn't do something. The Council had tried to weaken them. Instead, they had forced humanity to become stronger than ever before. And one day, when the time was right, the galaxy would learn just how big a mistake they had made. Walker sent the test data to Maria's lab and ordered the ship to return to Earth. Above him, the stars seemed to shine a little brighter, like they knew a secret. Humanity wasn't finished. They were just getting started. The message arrived on a quiet Tuesday morning. Captain James Walker stood at the window of Earth Defense Force headquarters, watching the sunrise paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. The coffee in his hand had gone cold, forgotten the moment the first alien transmission cut through Earth's communications channels. "We are the Galactic Council," the message had said. "Your species has been observed. Prepare for contact." Now, 3 months later, Walker wished they had never answered that call. He watched as another Earth battleship was torn apart, not by enemy weapons, but by its own crew under the Council's orders. The massive vessel, once a pride of humanity's fleet, split into chunks of useless metal under the watchful eyes of the Council's overseer ships. "That's the fourth one today," Admiral Stone said, walking up beside him. The older man's face looked worn, deep lines etched around his eyes from sleepless nights. "They're making us destroy our own ships while they watch, like parents making sure their children do their chores." Walker's jaw tightened. Parents don't usually threaten to obliterate their children if they disobey. The Council had arrived with ships that made Earth's finest vessels look like toys. Their massive fleet had simply appeared one day, using technology that humanity couldn't even begin to understand. But they hadn't come to destroy Earth. No, they had come with something far more humiliating in mind. "Your species," the Council speaker had declared in that first meeting, "is too aggressive for full membership in the galactic community. Your rapid military expansion into space shows dangerous tendencies that must be curtailed." The terms were simple. Earth would destroy 90% of its space fleet, leaving only a basic defensive force. They would accept Council oversight of all military activities. They would limit their expansion to approved colonies only. In return, they would receive observer status in the Galactic Council and limited access to some approved technologies. The alternative was complete isolation from all spacefaring races, with Council ships ensuring Earth remained trapped in its solar system. "Dr. Thompson wants to see you," Admiral Stone said, breaking into Walker's thoughts. "She's in the underground lab." Walker nodded, grateful for any excuse to stop watching the destruction of humanity's fleet. The underground facilities had become his refuge lately, where he could at least feel like he was doing something besides overseeing surrender. The elevator ride down was silent, each floor adding more weight to the tons of rock and metal between him and the sight of Earth's humiliation above. Dr. Maria Thompson was waiting for him in her lab, her usual neat appearance slightly disheveled, suggesting she'd been working through the night again. "Captain," she said, not looking up from her screens, "what do you know about adaptive architecture?" "That's construction technology, isn't it? Buildings that can change shape." "On the most basic level, yes." She finally turned to face him, her eyes bright with that look he'd learned to recognize, the look of someone who had found a way to fight back. "But what if we applied the same principle to ships?" She pulled up a simulation on the main screen. It showed a standard Earth destroyer, but as Walker watched, the ship's structure began to shift and flow like liquid metal, weapon systems reconfiguring, shield generators relocating, the entire hull transforming in response to simulated attacks. "They told us we can only have a small fleet," Maria said, a slight smile playing on her lips. "They never said anything about the quality of those ships." Walker leaned closer to the screen, hope stirring for the first time in months. "How long until we could implement something like this?" "That's the beauty of it. We've been working on similar technology for climate-adaptive buildings for years. We just never thought to apply it to ships because our traditional designs worked fine. But now," she shrugged, "when you're backed into a corner, you start seeing new applications for old ideas. The Council's observers won't understand what they're looking at," Maria finished. "We'll present it as a civilian construction technology we're adapting for emergency repairs. Nothing military about that."